Assalamu alaikum viewers, my name is Maryam Lemu and welcome to the show. This is the show Sisterly, where we talk about contemporary issues, social issues, and issues to do with our daily lives as well as our faith. On today's issue, we will be discussing Islamic education versus secular education. So please join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum viewers, welcome back to the show Sisterly. My name is Maryam Lemu. Before we went on the break, I promised you that on this episode, we shall be talking about Islamic education versus secular education, or what is popularly known as Western education. As usual, with me on the show are my friends.
Assalamu alaikum, Bimpe Aliu.
And?
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Monsurat Vincent.
And?
Assalamu alaikum, Bimpe.
Also known as the Queen Bee herself.
The one and only.
The one and only, yes. Well, welcome, sisters. There is this common myth out there, or misconception, I should say, that a lot of people feel that there is a divide between Islamic education and secular, or what is known more as Western education. And unfortunately, this divide is causing quite a lot of confusion, but also, I believe, introducing problems that don't necessarily need to exist.
Yeah.
In Islam, education has no halal or haram when it comes to the region you get it from. There is nothing to do with whether it comes from China or Japan or America and so on. Education is meant to be useful. And in Islam, as long as it's useful, it's halal. That is what is acceptable. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah increase me in knowledge, useful knowledge. That means knowledge that can be used, that can be applied in our daily lives. So secular or Western education is not un-Islamic. Things to do with technology and so on that we use in our daily lives, we use them to be able to today go on the internet, propagate Islam and so on. So without the secular education, obviously there would be some voids in society, and we will look more into that. So I believe, first of all, let's stop using the term Western education. Let us call it secular education.
Instead.
Exactly. What do you understand by Islam is a way of life? Monsurat, what do you understand by that terminology?
Thank you very much, Miriam. Like we usually say, Islam is a complete religion. It's a complete way of life.
Yes.
That means my religion, my faith as a Muslim, should impact on every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
I'm a chartered accountant. That should be brought to bear. My Islamic knowledge, the fact that I'm Muslim, should be brought to bear on every aspect of our life. You mentioned technology earlier.
Exactly.
You need that knowledge as a Muslim to be able to propagate Islam, like you rightly said.
Exactly.
I mean, we're in a building now.
Exactly.
You need that knowledge.
The architecture.
The architectural knowledge to be able to
Exactly.
get this building where it is. The medical doctors, you need that knowledge of medicine to be able to treat your patients and attend to them. And that is not Islamic knowledge. But you need that Islamic knowledge to bring to bear on your work as a medical doctor, as an architect. So you're very correct in saying that secular education is as good as Islamic education, if I may say so.
It's only missing the Islamic content, and that's basically what it is.
Definitely, Mansura. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the best amongst you are those who are most useful to one another.
Exactly.
I'm of no use to you if I don't have any skills.
Yes.
You're of no use to me if you don't have any skills.
Exactly.
And where do you get your skills from? We get our skills locally. We get our skills from secular education, medicine, architecture, like you rightly said, various other fields. So a combination of these things together makes you a complete person. An Islamic overview.
It's the balance. Right. Exactly. What would you have to add to what she just said?
No insinuations. One shouldn't be looked like, okay, it's better than the other.
Exactly.
I think we have to balance it. As a business person, I wouldn't say because I'm a Muslim, I would not know how to keep my books, how to manage resources, so it's a total package for me.
Absolutely.
So it's your complete way of living.
Exactly. That balance that you just mentioned is called federal kifaya in Islam. And what this basically means that it's become a religious obligation on a society to do certain things. And obviously, society today needs doctors. Society today needs institutions to be able to function normally. They need professionals in so many fields. If we don't have the refuse collection people, we would be dealing with an epidemic that we obviously will end up being hurt from. So we need to make sure that there is a healthy balance. When we say Islamic education, what it means is it has Islamic content. and the other one is just lacking Islamic content. However, we need to synergize and blend the two of them to be able to run a society better.
Correct.
Don't you agree?
Absolutely agree.
Exactly. If society decided that one was not as important as another, in other words, you have some people who say, I only want Islamic education for my children. What would that imply when it comes to this responsibility? As you have said, the best of mankind are those who are most useful to others, and we have already said we need to balance both. What would a society look like over the other?
That would definitely not be a good decision. I am a Muslim, alhamdulillah. If I choose to give my kids only Islamic education, so how do they function in this worldly life of ours? We need the knowledge of Islam, both for this world and the hereafter.
Exactly.
But we need secular knowledge for this world.
Yeah.
I mean, what skills would they have in order to earn a living? How would they be able to feed and take care of themselves?
Exactly.
Am I saying they will continuously be a liability on me? And then even myself that is taking care of them, is it because I do not have any, I mean, is it only Islamic knowledge that I possess?
Exactly.
Is that enough? Is that sufficient
to function and run a
function as a
society
mother?
well?
You know, this is
Exactly.
a show we're running now. Is it running just because of the Islamic content only?
Exactly.
The technology behind it is the brainchild of some other people.
Exactly.
Even the furniture we sit on and the clothes we wear, these are the ideas of other people. So you
Exactly.
can't just live without any of them. You need the Islamic
Absolutely.
knowledge as well as the secular knowledge.
In addition to what Monsurat and
Yeah.
the Prophet ﷺ said,
Sallallahu
searching for knowledge is compulsory. And it did not emphasize on Islamic knowledge alone.
I think one of the things, again, that keeps missing or is missing from the term that is used of Western education is, obviously, it makes it sound like Western education is not very positive. However, when we look at Western and secular education, it actually is a melting pot of so many different civilizations, and you just gave the hadith of how far we need to go to gather knowledge from everywhere. Western education, secular education includes things that, like introductions, innovations in society, in sciences, for instance, and there are so many more. Obviously, even the matchstick and gunpowder, those were inventions that came from China.
Yes.
And we're using it in today's society, even as Muslims. Right. Where would we be if it weren't because there was a way where all this information was centralized and channeled in a more deliberate way for us to now use and call secular education? There are many other inventions.
Papers,
Exactly.
also from China.
Paper also from China, and paper also from Egypt as well.
Yes, that's true.
Exactly. And then words, terminologies. There are words that are used today that are
Even
derived from the
philosophy
yes.
is a Greek word. Yeah.
Exactly.
So many others.
So again, it becomes a fardu kifaya, a responsibility on society for us to learn all these, to mix them all together. What would you say we would be lacking if we focused only on the secular education? You mentioned the Islamic one, and what would be lacking. What would one miss out on if you focused only? Obviously, we are here today. We're products of the secular education.
Exactly.
But if we only had that as our options, or
Without Islamic education,
without Islamic education,
we'll be losing out both in this world
exactly.
and may Allah have mercy in the hereafter.
Yes, but what I mean in particular is the fact that we actually didn't have a school that was offering both at the same time.
Yes.
That is, it wasn't a faith-based school, and obviously that's what we're talking about. If one chooses today to send their children to just a secular school, how does one deal with that? Because obviously there is a healthy benefit, and obviously it is prescribed for us to merge and balance the two. What would we be missing out on if we picked only one?
If you picked only one, either secular or Islamic education.
This time Islamic, sorry, secular.
If you picked only secular,
Yes.
then that means that child would not grow up to be a complete Muslim. How do you educate your child about a religion that is pure and good and beautiful? If you do not teach that child, the child would lose out. The child would end up to
The
be
morals.
a beautiful, brilliant surgeon or engineer, but there will be no Islamic morals, like you said.
Exactly.
The child will not know any of the Prophet's hadiths. The child will not know what to do when you want to enter, when you want to sleep, when you want
How
to
to
enter
even say the
the
5 daily
toilet.
prayers,
It is a
read the
way of
Quran.
life. It teaches us what to do when we want to drink water, when we want to wear a new garment, when we want to sleep, when we are fasting, when you want to break your fast. How do you want to miss out on those things?
Exactly.
So you have to teach your child. If you don't want the child to go to an Islamic school, then you get a malama. for the child at home, like my children.
Exactly.
So you need to balance it out. Because really, if we look at it, in some ways, there are actually some, the local mosques are not like it was back in the day. They were a bit more, I think, stricter back in the day. And right now you have a lot of good ones around that are a bit in between the secular and the Islamic. They sort of merged it together. So to encourage more people to come to the mosque and learn about their religion.
I think also when we talk about learning and gathering knowledge from all sources, we need to, it's emphasized that it needs to be useful knowledge. There is knowledge that can be harmful, and obviously there is also knowledge that is haram.
Right.
What kind would you say is haram? Does anybody have anything to share with regard to that?
I think it's important we emphasize this fact that all knowledge is halal, except the one that is used for the wrong purpose.
Yes.
I mean, talk about technology today. Technology has led us to where we are.
Exactly.
We're in this studio because of technology.
Right. Yes.
Millions of viewers all over the world are watching us just because of technology. But you and I know that it's this same technology that is being used to destroy the world in other ways.
Exactly.
The guns being carried around by the armed robbers. The bombs being blown around by terrorists.
Right. Yeah.
These are also products of knowledge.
Yeah.
So it depends on how we use the same knowledge.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You can use it to save life. You can use it to
Exactly.
destroy life. So it's the
Exactly.
usefulness that determines whether it's good or bad.
Exactly. You
I
wanted
mean,
to
and
add?
you know, your actions shall be judged according to intentions, which
Exactly.
brings us to useful information. Exactly. When you have, I mean, secular knowledge and you know everything, if it might not be useful to you, you might use it in the wrong ways.
Exactly.
If you don't have the fear of God, I mean, you have to know what a Muslim should do, what Islam stands for. So it's highly encouraged that you balance it out. You know, you get Islamic knowledge. I did Walima. I tell people, I mean, I know things that are right. You know what is right. You know what is wrong, and it helps you even in the secular
Exactly.
education.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get the right knowledge for the wrong thing. It's
Exactly.
very important.
I need to clarify something that
Yeah.
Bimpe just said. She said she did Walimat, and by that she meant that she went to an Arabic school
She went
and
to
then
an Islamic school.
Islamia and graduated.
Exactly.
But you will find out that quite a number of Muslims that went to the same Islamia, graduated, do not even understand what they have learned. And so have they been able to put it to good use?
Exactly.
You know, so you acquire so much. Because sometimes you spend up to 3-4 years depending on the work. Because I'm sure she must have mixed secular with that same one. So probably she spent like 3-4 years.
After school, like
after school.
when I'm done with
And then
school.
people are done with, with knowing how to read the Quran. And they do not understand. And in terms of problem, you see them running around. And in terms of dawah, they're nowhere to be found. And you're like, where is the knowledge? Where's the usefulness?
How do you use it
How do
to
you
benefit
use it?
others?
So it's not just saying Islamic knowledge. Yes, in some cases, a lot of people do acquire it and they use it, and alhamdulillah, we are the better for it.
Exactly.
But quite much more Muslims do know how to read the Quran, but that is where it ends.
Yes.
And so would you say that is the Islamic knowledge we are even referring to?
Exactly.
Because that particular one has not even been put to use.
Exactly.
So it all depends on putting this knowledge to use and to good use.
Usefully,
Exactly.
yes.
Another one, too, that is considered to be, and based on the question I asked you, not good knowledge, is when you also take maybe courses like art, and then your instructor tells you that you have to paint a nude model. This is the kind of knowledge that you have to keep away from because it is haram due to the nudity. However, if you were studying medicine and you were asked to look at a nude body to study anatomy, that is halal. Again, it's about useful. How is it applied? You can also take maybe looking at this area that is we shared as a big concern now, atheism. If you choose to do more research on atheism and you want to learn more about it, obviously there is a benefit to it, but there could be a drawback. You could read it, but what is your intention? Now, if you read it for the sake of understanding where they are coming from and how to use it to dispel any comments or any kind of things they may say, and get to know what angle they can use, so you can desensitize children from the kind of campaign or propaganda that is being used, then it's useful knowledge. But if you are learning about it to actually practice it, then obviously it is bad knowledge. So even if it is bad, this is one thing in Islam that is prescribed, that even if knowledge is bad, we must ensure that there are people in society who actually learn it so that they learn how to counter or discourage and know where people are coming from. So there is a group that actually it is permissible for them to learn as long as they are going to use it to benefit others. Exactly. Well, we need to take a break, and when we come back, inshallah, we shall be talking more about education, Western, or, as we have correctly said, secular education versus Islamic education. So please join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum, viewers. My name is Maryam Lemu, and welcome back to the show Sisterly. Today we've been talking about secular education versus Islamic education. And so far, obviously, what keeps repeating and we are emphasizing is there needs to be a healthy balance between the two. Now, earlier we discussed the issue to do with if you focus on just one type of education versus another, is there any side effect? Is there anything wrong with that? We discussed the Islamic education, and you brought up some good examples of what happens if you only focus on Islamic education and you miss out on the secular. However, I would like to go a little bit more in-depth into the secular because that is what is more mainstream, that is common in our society right now. What happens if you as a Muslim send your child to a secular school? Obviously, nowadays, alhamdulillah, there are so many more Muslim or faith-based schools where they mix both secular and Islamic studies. What would you say when, again, back to the same question, you focus only on the secular schools? What is being taught in the schools? That, I believe, is a concern that Muslims should have. Is there anything to be concerned about? But as a Muslim, I personally can say, I believe there is. What would you say?
Of course, we should have our concerns as Muslims when our kids go to non-faith-based school, or specifically
secular schools.
Secular schools. The knowledge being passed there sometimes might not be regulated. You know, kids pick up knowledge from different angles, and then you need that Islamic knowledge to enable you to see what you're taking into.
To filter
whatever you're taking in.
Yeah.
Now, you rightly mentioned the issue of the heart. You know, kids might be taught heart, but then you tell me to draw a nude picture as a child.
Fine art, yes.
Fine art.
Yes.
You know, what message is being passed across?
Exactly.
Unlike when a medical doctor has to see the same picture.
Exactly.
So the purpose for which that knowledge is being shared that we should look at.
So as a Muslim, you would know that is haram. Don't
So
go
you
for
need
the
that
nude
Islamic
one.
knowledge to enable you to determine which one is useful for you and which one is not. Because ordinarily, everything is knowledge.
Exactly.
Everything is knowledge.
Absolutely.
But is this halal?
Exactly.
Is this useful?
Is it useful?
You need that Islamic knowledge to be able to know the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Because society sometimes does not frown at some of these things.
Yeah.
It's seen as knowledge.
Exactly.
And then the child might just key in, or you as an individual might key into it. It's like you're on the internet and trying to check an information. Some sites do pop up.
Yeah.
You need that Islamic knowledge to know this is not for you.
Excellent.
You don't need to be on this site.
That's true.
That brings me to some schools. I don't think we have those kind of schools in Nigeria, but secular education too. Some schools will tell you that marriage is allowed between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman.
Yeah.
And it's certified in those kind of countries.
Yes.
What do you now do if your child is taught such in school? And you can imagine if such a child does not have access to Islamic education, which Allah says marriage is based only between a man,
and a woman.
That child will
Exactly.
definitely go with what they're teaching him or her in that school. So it is very important to actually balance both.
I think, that brings me to choosing the right school for your child. It's very important.
Absolutely. You know, one of the other things one has to be concerned about in secular schools where you do not mix it with the faith is that issues like interest is raised and your child is taught interest usually. Also, using chemicals and pesticides to treat your farm or your crops without sharing the side effects of or the damage that thing would have to the soil. There are so many other things, even Darwin's theory of evolution. Now, there are up to 3 different opinions that scholars have on this particular topic. However, if a child does not have that healthy balance where they know the Islamic perspective on those particular topics, you could have a situation where a child is taught about interest and they don't know that in Islam it is
usury.
Very, very bad and unacceptable for you to go into the banking sector where usury is being, practiced.
And apart from the fact that such knowledge are bad, that Islam also has good alternatives for some of those knowledge. So you not only, by exposing your child to Islamic knowledge, you are not only letting him know the right from the wrong, but you're also letting him know that for every knowledge is being taught, in most instances, there could be alternatives that Islam has provided.
Yeah.
You know?
Like today, of course, we see Islamic banking, as I mentioned, usually.
Exactly.
It is because of the fact that there is an alternative that has now been brought through education, that one has been able to blend the two together comfortably. And mainstream society now, many, many non-Muslims are seeing the benefits of Islamic banking. It's acceptable by the CBN and so on. And I think also another thing is that you, through the Islamic values that are inculcated in this education system, you have doctors who have empathy, who have a heart, who understand how important it is. These days, many times we see people who have no bedside manners, doctors who have no bedside manners. But as a good Muslim, practicing Muslim, then you would have empathy on your patient. Farmers, for instance, who tend their crop, if they don't understand the negative side effects of pesticides and these chemicals that they put in the soil, they are stripping and depleting the soil of nutrients that future generations would be able to derive benefit from. And
honestly,
this
Maryam,
is,
I quite agree with you on this. The issue of medical doctor gives me a practical example of what I have in my office. We have this female doctor who is in a full hijab. When patients come to the clinic, whether they are males or females, they all insist in seeing her because of the professionalism. And she'll tell you, I'm a Muslim.
Exactly.
I have to let them know. This is my work. It's a manner between me and Almighty Allah. You see, it's not just having that secular knowledge that matters, but the fact that she's aware, because quite a number of other Muslims might not be aware that this is what's expected of them. She's not the only Muslim around. But because she has that Islamic knowledge, and she has a good one, and she has chosen to put it to good use, because we also have to know that some Muslims have this Islamic knowledge, but they're not putting it to use.
Exactly. We also have a responsibility.
The Western knowledge or the secular knowledge could be used rightly and wrongly.
Exactly.
Same thing with our Islamic knowledge. And that's why we have some challenges.
That's where extremists come up and pick and choose parts of verses of the Quran and Hadith that they feel will support their extremist ideologies and ideologies and so on, that they use to radicalize innocent people who don't have knowledge, sufficient knowledge of the right type of Islam, and also the fact that when you mix the two, because obviously we've got groups even right here in Nigeria
advocating for
Boko Haram, which means secular education is haram.
One kind of education.
Exactly.
And they're all over the place killing children,
innocent people,
killing women, killing innocent people for nothing.
Of the same secular education to do what they're doing.
Right.
Exactly.
You see them on YouTube, you see them, videos and what
social media.
Secular knowledge.
Exactly.
It's the usefulness to which we put all this knowledge that we acquire that matters.
We'll be right back after the break, where we continue talking about education, Islamic education, secular education, and we're going to actually introduce another area, which is co-education. What are our thoughts on having our kids in mixed schools? So please join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum, viewers. Welcome back to the show, Sisterly. My name is Maryam Lemu, and today we've been talking about Islamic education versus secular education. My sisters, I would love to go a little bit more in-depth into this topic we raised earlier about what we do to supplement the Islamic education when we find that our children are in secular schools. Because I know that is very common. I know your children are in secular colleges and secular schools.
Yes, they are.
How do you supplement and make sure that you fill in the blank and this balance we are talking about and harmony, that they get a holistic education, that it actually happens?
Okay, so we've emphasized that Islam is a way of life and you need to plan. So what did I do when I started having kids? Because I grew up being called Bimpe. My Muslim name is Saudat. So because I don't wear the veil yet, inshallah, I'll soon start, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So I have to explain when they say me in Juma, oh, are you a Muslim? Yes, yes. And I have to start explaining to different people. So I made sure that my children's names, the Arabic names come first before the native names. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Abdul Rahman, Abdul Mumin, Aisha. So people know that my
children
are Muslims. Then the second thing I did was to make sure that I get them a malama from a young age. So my boys started memorizing from a very early age. Aisha recently also started, and she's really, really picking up. So that has actually balanced out for me. And when the boys go back to school, they come home on holidays, they know they have to resume.
Yes.
And I'm pumping them with the knowledge, the Arabic, the meaning, and also hadith and real-life experiences to back up the education. So I think, inshallah,
it's working slowly but surely.
Really
Inshallah, may Allah make it easy. And also, you mentioned that you take them to the local masjid, and they are involved in community service as well.
They are.
And I think that is also part of this morals that we're trying to impart. Monsurat, any more things? Because you also have your kids in secular schools.
Yes, I do.
What do you do to supplement and make sure there's a balance?
In the first instance, in choosing school for the kids, good enough, we have quite a number of Muslim schools that are standard nowadays. But we had a bit of challenge in the fact that we couldn't get one that was very close to the house. My kids are not in boarding house, they attend the day school. So we wanted to ensure that the schools were as close to the house as possible. And there wasn't that much option when it came to Muslim schools. However, in picking schools for them, I ensured there are schools that offer IRK, Islamic religious knowledge, as a subject. Because sometimes these kids go to a secular school, and even when they get there, they are being forced to do another religion as a subject, I mean. You know, so I ensure that I'm picking kids school for my kids. It has to be schools that offer IRK, Islamic religion knowledge, as a subject. The kids are able to learn their religion right from school. In addition to whatever I take them in the house. And like Bimpe said, my kids also go to the same local mosque with Bimpe's kids, where they do Islamia, you know, learn how to read the Quran, and we pray together at home. All that helps to increase them in Islamic knowledge. And we're able to go at the same pace, you know, and we'll be the better for it, inshallah.
Exactly. You want to add, Queen Bee, how do you interact with your kids?
Yes, we share some similar stories. Like most people call me Queen Bee. Because they don't even know my Muslim name. But for my kids, my husband and I, we ensure that we call them by Muslim name. What's your name? My name is Shasmin. My name is Zabrin. I mean, so you know. Thank you. So you know they are Muslims, and in little acts, as little as if my daughter hears you sneeze, when you say we bless, she will like say I didn't hear Alhamdulillah. I mean, so in their day-to-day life, like any little thing, my young daughter, as well as she take her, I want to say my prayers, mommy. When I mean, so you have to include it in your daily life. Like it's very important, because if they don't learn it as kids as young, I mean, they might lose it by the time they.
That's the thing, this losing.
In my own case, you know, my surname is a Vincent. So the moment you mention that name, people will not assume that you are a Muslim. And so my kids from the young age, I bear Monsurat, yes, I know, and also bear my first name, my middle name, Modesola. But because my surname, my marital name is Vincent, which made people to assume that I'm not a Muslim, you know, my kids their Muslim name. And, you know, they also know the meaning of their name. So, you know, they know what they're doing. They try, we use every available means to get Islamic knowledge and to ensure that it is useful for us.
Well, you mentioned memorization. And if I can pick up on that, because she said the same thing about memorization, and I know how important this is, because you start with them young.
At a young age.
Memorizing the Quran. How many of us remember the times table, the multiplication table when we were in secondary school? 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 4. You do it. But look at us today, where almost, I think everybody is in their 40s. We still remember, and you wonder at that time, why were they teaching you this thing? But it's the rhythm. It's the repetition. Until today, in this our more middle age, so to speak, we still remember. But that's what memorizing the Quran does. When you start young, it's retained. And you see throughout their lives it's there, because the Quran has been revealed in a rhythmic form, almost like poetry.
And I think another thing that is important is you have to get Islamic material. I mean, apart from that, have some Islamic, as we have the small laptops, the small laptop that teaches you A, B, C, D. We have the Islamic one that teaches you your Alif, your so that they are used to it.
Interest would be I
mean, when I say go and get the laptop, they know which one I'm talking about at that particular time. So they grow into it. And it's very important.
And there are board games too. A Day with the Prophet, the book that you can read about things they do each day.
5 pillars, you know, there's a game on 5 pillars of Islam. You know, so
there are movies too. Fortunately, now we've seen a few more movies coming out that are instilling Islamic values in us, and also stories of the Prophet Sirah. Not only should we tell our children those stories, but we should also make sure that they watch it.
And
because that's where they really see things come to life.
I think we should also make it quite interesting for them. You know, when we grew up, it was going to the masjid and you're quite strict. You have your
those alphas with
alphas
their
where
cane.
quite strict. I know, but now
it's more fun.
It's more fun.
Making it more
They're
lively.
happy, saying, "Okay, I want to go
There are
and learn," which is what
Islamic,
which is what it
films
should be.
for children to watch
Which
now.
is what it's
different ones available.
Exactly.
So I
and
think
then
we
also
should-
what they listen to in the music. If you start them from an early age listening to nasheeds, as they grow up, at least there is something as an alternative to the pop music that is extremely vulgar out there. I'm not saying don't listen, because it's very hard to
everywhere.
tell. Absolutely. It's almost impossible to tell your child only listen to nasheeds, but at least the valuable songs in there, or the values that instill morals that are in the songs, the words, will be something that as they listen to it,
Pick from it.
Exactly. I'd like to ask you all next about the issue to do with mixed schools, co-education. Okay. What are your thoughts on sending your child to a school where, if you have a daughter, of course, Aisha, we're talking about here, going to a school, especially as she grows older, where there are boys. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's any negative thing about my child or any child attending a mixed school, so to say. They are in class with boys. Boys and girls are in the same class. They eat together, and they learn together. If your child understands morals, we shouldn't shy away from telling them what they need to know at a very young age. So they know that where's the study actually, Maryam? To show that girls-only school or boys-only school are free of lesbians or homosexuals or bad people or early pregnancies or few abortions. I don't think there's any study to prove that co-educational schools have more immoral children than the single schools. So if you ask me, I don't think anything is wrong.
Well, in Islam, actually, there is no non-Islamic or Islamic kind of school, so to speak, when it comes to gender, because there's not been any clear rule that says men and women, boys and girls should not be in the same environment, except when it comes to salat. That is the time where we are expected to be at the back. Obviously, the main reason is picture a man behind a woman praying. It's very suggestive. All sorts of thoughts will come through their mind, especially when they start bowing down to do ruku and sujud. However, go back to the time of the Prophet, organizations were mixed, institutions were mixed gender. There was no segregation or separation. Markets, there was nothing during the time of the Prophet that said men should go to a particular market and women, or there are hours for men versus women. In that time, it was all mixed. And of course, the biggest time in the world where Muslims come together in one place.
Hajj.
Umrah, exactly. Men and women are standing side by side, again, except during Salat. Otherwise, there's nothing prescribed that says there's something wrong with it. The only thing I'm wondering about is there any benefit to girls being separated from boys? Is there any good benefit, or is anybody advocating that?
I've not been able to see any benefit in that. Like Bimpe said, we don't have statistics to support that. But personally, I would not really want my child to go to an only boys school. I've got 3 boys. I would not want that. Because growing up myself, I went to a mixed school. And I remember there was a time we had a new intake into my school. She came from an only girls school, and she said that was because even as far back as then, lesbianism was being practiced in their school, and her parents had to pull her out. She didn't say she was involved, but it was becoming more rampant in that school. So I realized that for those who go to mixed school, you hardly have such cases. And there is no issue, I'm not lying about it. You really need to educate your kids about sex education.
I want to clarify, actually. Definitely there is nothing wrong with single gender schools. I want to emphasize that because there is no study that shows because you go to a single gender school, you're going to have lesbianism or homosexuality. Honestly, that is not a fact or a study that has been done. And the same thing that you mentioned just now, I would disagree with you on the fact that we haven't heard things like that coming from mixed gender schools. We run a school, and we've heard all sorts of things that have happened in various mixed schools that are out there. So these behaviors are actually subjective to the individual. Sometimes it goes back to that moral values that you've inculcated in your child from a very young age this is a no-go area. You do not do this kind of thing, and it's just unacceptable. So whether they go to a single-gender school or a mixed
Absolutely
school,
correct.
is just no is no. This is in black and white. I do want to, though, say again, separation, though, when it's separate schools altogether,
Yes.
you know, I can't say much about that. But studies have proven that when girls are separated from boys, girls excel and do far better. The reason why is, of course, and it's very straightforward, there's no distraction. No boyfriend, girlfriend issue, no need to look pretty
so
before you go
focused
to
on
class. You know, they don't lose focus because, especially when we're talking by secondary school age, where for the boys, testosterone is coming out of their ears and everywhere. For the girls, of course, hormones are raging and they do enjoy the attention they get when a guy tells her how cute she is. They come to the age when they are suddenly aware that there is a creature that is walking on this earth that is not like me. And I find him or her looking attractive.
Yes.
We run a college where we have both boys and girls. However, the classes are separated. And by doing that, we have actually seen a very positive impact in the education system. And it's a school that is faith-based. So we do balance the secular and the Islamic education. But the key thing goes back to how are you raising your child?
Very important.
What Islamic values are you inculcating in them, in their conduct, in their manners? And like you said at the beginning, Islam is a way of life. If you can teach your child this and make sure that they get that in them, circumstances beyond your control has made it impossible for you at this stage to put your child in a school where they get both, which means you as a parent have to supplement. And I think that is the responsibility of all of us Muslims, that whatever situation we find ourselves in, whether we are in places where we have access to excellent schools, and there are many, many all over the world, even in this country, there are excellent schools that will balance both education systems. The most important thing is let them get knowledge, let them get useful knowledge that is applicable. Inshallah, we'll be right back after the break with just some few more words. Please join us in a few moments. Assalamu alaikum, viewers. Welcome back to the show Sisterly. Today we've been talking about secular education versus Islamic education. We've also been talking about co-education, where you have mixed schools, where boys and girls are all in the same school, and then schools where boys are separated from the girls in the same school, and also schools where completely there is no gender mixing. It's a boys' school or a girls' school. And what are the benefits? What are the pros and cons, in other words? Since we've been talking about education and we've come to the end of the show, what would you say, Monsurat, are your final words with regard to education as a whole?
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin. We said it before, education is key.
Yeah.
You need Islamic education. Yeah. You need secular education. You need to have the two in order to be useful to yourself here and in the hereafter. But more importantly, you need to put the knowledge to good use and for the benefit of mankind. That is what makes the difference and not just acquiring the knowledge.
Excellent point. What would you say?
I always like to refer to my dad because he's had so much influence in my life. May Allah be pleased to him. My father, Adeyemi, I have seen him deprive himself of various worldly things to be able to send us to school. Yeah. We were quite a large number while growing up. And he made sure we had access to secular and Islamic education, and which is why I've turned out the way I am today, alhamdulillah. So that also has given me the drive to make sure I imbibe those things in my children so I can watch them add value to the society, to themselves, and to Islam in general, inshallah.
Excellent, excellent. Queen Bee, your final words.
So I'm going to reiterate that it is very important to have the secular knowledge, very important. Knowledge is key. And at the same time, the Islamic knowledge, you have to know what your do's and don'ts as a Muslim. It is very important as a Muslim.
Absolutely. I think that word you said just now really has stirred something in me, which is the sacrifice that your dad made. I think it's really important as Muslims that we understand how important education is. We run a school, and I've seen occasions where, wallahi, a parent has sold his house just to pay for his child's education. This is somebody who really, really values and is ready to make personal sacrifices in order to give our kids the very best. in life, we always pray that our children will be better than us, greater than us. And the Muslim Ummah cannot continue moving forward if we don't have a good education, balanced education, where we are useful to society. This is an amana in our hands. We as parents have a huge responsibility to make sure we educate ourselves, but also to make sure our children get the very best education we can give them, which includes making sacrifices. So, dear viewers, I hope you have enjoyed the show. May Allah continue to strengthen you and give you the ability to be able to not only get the best education for yourselves, but also for your offspring, inshallah. May it be a witness for you in the life to come, and may they be a source of sadaqatun jariyah for you as well, inshallah. We've come to the end of the show. We hope you enjoyed what we have shared with you. Please join us next time as we share some very interesting and relevant information that will be, inshallah, applicable in your lives, and we will also learn from each other. Assalamu alaikum from me, yours,
Sisterly.